The Nintendo Direct has dropped the trailer from Deltarune Chapter 5. I knew that we were going to see the field of pink and gold in a big summer event. I was actually going to do a video about Game Over since Digital Circus ended that way, and I can't believe an Evangelion reference had a better ending. Shout out to Insomnia Cat, by the way. Chapter 5 will be released in June 24, less than 2 weeks from writing the script. Following a popular theory that Deltarune's levels and themes are Undertale's but backwards, if we count 7 main zones in Undertale and we take into consideration that Deltarune has 7 chapters, Chapter 3 was TV show themed and we were inside a volcano. Deltarune does the same, but instead of a volcano, Chris left the door open and there was snow sleeping inside the house. Waterfall had pianos, was full of rain, was freshwater themed, and we faced a grim-scaled knight in full armor. Chapter 4 had pianos, was cold water themed, was raining outside, and we faced a merry-scaled knight in full armor. But now we have the final piece of information. You all know Snowdin. It looked like it's always Christmas and the main plaza has a Christmas tree. But what could be the equivalent of Christmas but to summer? A summer festival, of course, but this is not a county fair festival, it's a Japanese summer festival, like you'd see on a rom-com or a slice of life. And we know that Toby would change his right hand to be Japanese, so here we have it. Snowdin is a Western winter festivity, and Deltarune's Chapter 5 Dark World is an Asian summer holiday. Huh? But why? I mean, it looks great, but I didn't know it was going to be Japanese. The Dark Worlds are meant to be shaped by the person that created them in the first place. Okay, first of all, what do we have in the trailer? A big flower sprout, flower-type rodents, and a flower pot knight with a cherry blossom on top. Since when was Asgore a weeaboo? I know that there was an interaction between him and Alphys at the end of Undertale that might suggest that Alphys turned him into an otaku, and since that some of the characters we see in Deltarune had jobs and roles similar to those that appear on Undertale's end credits, it kind of makes sense, or does it? It's very interesting to me the differences between the festival, or what we've seen from the festival, and this Dark World. The festival appears to be a completely normal fall season county fair. And who might be the opener of this fountain? It all points toward the Flower Man himself. We already discussed in another video that the prophecy does not predict anything related to the Weird Route or the secret bosses, so Asgore is not going to be a secret boss. What's more, the prophecy wants Chris to avoid this path for its own sake. A self-preserving prophecy, if you may. That's why, when the Betrayal shows a Flower Man in the asylum, it means that the role Asgore will play is similar to that of Tenna, or any of the rulers from previous chapters. We also see a few enemies in the trailer making a return, and is that enough to saying? This will definitely be on the dojo on Castle Town, nothing to see here. But the two enemies we already mentioned, the Flower Rooting and the Pot Knight, are interesting, since this is Asgore's store. We know that there's a lot of stuff that belonged to Chris in Chapter 1. Some of the stuff that was confiscated on that closet seems to have belonged to the Dreamers in the past. The Rootings are Chris's cards, for example. Maybe, since this place belongs to Asgore, something similar is going on here. But that rooting, instead of being based on a card, is based on a leaf. Some elements will be similar to those of Chapter 1. After all, the ruler of this Dark World will be a king, right? But hold on. Are we sure about it? Asgore will be heavily featured here, but this is only his shop. The prophecy describes him as trapped in asylum. It doesn't sound like a description you'll give to a king. The Flower Man? That's not a dignified term. In fact, that sounds denigrating, like if we were talking about a homeless man or some crackhead. Remember, Gerson mentioned that the field of pink and gold is to be shared in an inferno of jealousy. And remember the association between the Dreamers and fire, or well, goats and fire in general, in opposite to that of the deers, which are more associated with holiness and cold. If this Flower Man has any other role that is not the role of a ruler, where does that leave us? I'm taking this mainly from Gunnar Gnostic. I'm taking this theory mainly from Gunnar Gnostic, cool name by the way. Knowing all of this, the whole Asgore weeaboo thing just didn't fit well to me. The Undertale characters keep most of their characteristics from their game. Undyne was a knight and now she's a police. Toriel, the queen, is a teacher. And Asgore was the king, and he ended up being a gardener. Where did all of this Japan thing even came from? Did Alphys just knock on the store looking for the cat friend thing that stole the milk? No. This is someone else's doing. Someone else opened this Dark World. The one who's been making preparations for the festival since the earlier chapters. That's right. I'm talking about Carol Holiday. It's been mentioned multiple times that she is basically maintaining Asgore's store, but I think that she is more than she seems at first glance, and no, I'm not saying that Carol is a knight or anything. The dogs on the police station mentioned that they tried to sneak in the Holiday mansion and were attacked by something in the shadows. Back then, I just thought that they were talking about something darkness related, but nope, she has a katana on the kitchen and shurikens disguised as snowflakes on the living room. Her liking for Japanese stuff is kept secret, or tries to keep it secret, so if she were to, let's say, open a dark fountain, it may have a Japanese theme, don't you think? There's also her obsession with preserving stuff, to freeze them in time, just like Desa's room and all that. And this dark world is damn traditional Japanese to me. If we assume that the Roaring Knight opened the fountains for chapter 1, 2 and 4, this had a king, a queen, and chapter 4 was a church. But wait, there is something very odd with chapter 4's thematic. Chapter 4 Dark World has 4 darkness with an explicitly Asian references on their design. The wafer, although being a communion ceremonial wafer, wears Chinese robes. The Mislus that are supposed to be spirits or fairies, their names derive from the word Mizu, which means water in Japanese. The organics are inspired by a yokai, and the Ways, the only enemy that speaks Chinese, their names derive from the Mandarin word for ghost. If we are in a Western-inspired church, why is it that almost every enemy here are references to East Asian folklore? And before you say that we saw the Roaring Knight opening the fountain, nope, the Roaring Knight only summoned the Titan at the end. We still don't know who opened the fountain of the church, and that person is Carol Holiday. Carol was a Japanese deer all along. Now that I think about it, all of this reminds me to Masami's mom from The Amazing World of Gumball. Okay, this is getting a bit cross-referencey. And assuming that Carol will be the Japan enjoyer here, just like in some tales from Christian tradition, deers are seen as messengers from the gods. They are associated with the cycle of life and death, as seen through the shading of their antlers. Here, they represent a constant of nature. But wait, the shading of their antlers. Guess which member of the Holiday family is the only one with a unnatural color on their antlers? Carol. The cycle of life and death that Carol should represent, being a Japanese deer, is frozen in time, preserved. And this lunatic here will be the one opening the Dark Fountain on Asgore's door. So yeah, that's all of my stolen evidence from the Asgore Dreamer red herring thing. Of course, he will be important later, but Gerson also says that his jealousy burned down the whole field. And you know what they say about stars. They burn the brightest when they're about to die, and the sun is setting on the festival. How long did it take her to smile? Oh yeah, it's all coming together, but we'll come to that later. What else can we get from the trailer? As I mentioned, we see Chris and Susie sliding down a giant flower stem. If I had to take a guess, this could be one of two things: the entrance to the rest of the Dark World or the stairs leading to the basement. There is also another sequence taking place on a swamp, maybe also part of the basement. And maybe this swamp is where the not suspicious at all flowers are going to be relevant, which means that this chapter will be divided into 2 parts, the top side being the petals of the flower and the lower portion being the stem or maybe the roots of the flower. Also, the sun setting might just be the window from Asgore's store. As the newsletter said, let's have one last adventure before the sun completely sets, before the dark clouds arrive. And once the sun sets, the spirit and the darkness from the root will rise and haunt the field of pink and gold with darkness. Also, one of the most analyzed sections of previous chapters has to be Gerson's words to Susie, and for a good reason. During his fight against Susie as the Hammer of Justice, he talks about the Lord of the Hammers, which, as we know, it follows some of the main beats of the Deltarune prophecy. Chapter 5, The Field of Pink and Gold. The vast garden is charred in an inferno of jealousy. There was only one more chapter. After that, it all stopped. The next book, it never got written. The story, it became so grand, so overwhelming, some say he'd swallow up the author himself. The ones who would write the next, the youth. The pen was lying there for them to pick up, to make the next page, but they never did. But you, my dear, I see a story light up in your eyes. So, how do you think it'll end? No, how do you want it to end? An ending? If I could choose, I wouldn't have an ending. It's just better if stuff just goes on forever, right? Well, ain't that something? At this late hour, with the bells ringing out their justice, you choose eternity. Hold on dearly to that thought. For the tides of fate are drawing close, and soon an ocean of ink shall wash across the pages. You said you fancied yourself a hero, I don't know much about heroes, but I know that whatever you call them, there's someone who'll never give up trying to do the right thing. There's no prophecy or legend about anyone like that. It's just something I know is true. But there's one thing that can override the dark. A white pen known as hope. Miss, I believe this is what you hold. Knowing how tense Susie can be, I'm pretty sure Gerson meant all of this metaphorically. What he meant is that the hero's will is the only thing capable of breaking the prophecy and change the outcome of whatever happens in chapter 6. Susie might have taken this literally, and so we are sent on an adventure to find the literal white pen of hope to change the prophecy, to faint away the darkness and the spirits and dark things roaming around the field of ink and gold. Or maybe that white pen is just a trap to lure our heroes into a dark place. And why did I say the main boss? When the previous 2 chapters dropped, the caption "Deltarune is waiting" were placed on a scene relevant to the boss of the respective chapters. Chapter 3 had Tena's introduction, and Chapter 4 had the waves of Titan spawn. This shrine will be one of the appearances of the main boss of this realm, maybe the ruler of this world. And adding to that arc is a torii gate. These are meant to separate the mundane world from the sacred grounds of the Shinto shrine, which means this dark ruler is protected or has some influence over the esoteric and the holy. Not only that, the shrine is not friend-shaped as it may appear at first glance, it is gallery-shaped. Gallery is also one of the beatrules that appears on the full prophecy, and Gallery is a song that plays when you're about to face the final boss of each chapter. So, the Dark Regent of the Flower World is waiting for the heroes inside the gallery-shaped shrine. And do you guys remember chess theory, that the final boss of each chapter represents a piece of chess? Let's see. King is a king, queen is a queen, the Roaring Knight, chapter 3 actual final boss is the knight, and the Titan, the fortified Tower of Darkness we have to climb to seal the fountain from the inside, is the Rook. So that leaves us with the Bishop, so the final boss of this chapter is going to be a priest. Also, this shrine mirrors the dog shrine from Snowdin on Undertale. And speaking of which, if I were to guess what the secret bosses might be, Snowdin's relevant character was Papyrus. He was an aspiring royal guard wanting to take the human to their king. Maybe here is the same? Like a darkener that tries to kidnap Rousey for the high priest of the flower realm? And now, to wrap this up, let's check what the websites have to say. The newsletter have just one thing to say about chapter 5. In chapter 4 we saw dark clouds in the horizon, that's why let's not look there for now. Let's turn around and watch the sun, before it goes down completely. Let's smile again. Let's have one more fun adventure, okay? Oh yeah, everything's going to shit after these chapters. The weird route this time is going to be really devastating. Deltarune.com was also updated with a countdown. The white title turns into blue and pink. That's definitely going to be the introduction for this chapter. Surrounded by blue flowers. And not any kind of blue flowers. These are blue roses. These kinds of flowers are not found in the wild, and they are dyed or genetically modified, and represent uniqueness and unrequited love, and something unobtainable. The unrequited love part may have something to do with the weird route, or something between Noelle and Susie, but the uniqueness part is very interesting to me. As I mentioned, the Deltarune logo turns into blue and pink, Chris's colors in the Dark World. That part about uniqueness referring to Chris's identity crisis. The other kind of flower we see here is a forget-me-not. And I don't think I have to explain to you why a flower called forget-me-not is relevant to Deltarune, but their meaning is also curious, because they symbolize true love, faithful companionship, and enduring memory. Two flowers of the same color that mean two completely opposite things, as a way to symbolize both the weird route and the prophecy route. And if you allow me to get into the cracked territory here for a second, although we're already past that, if we invert the colors of the website, we get pink and gold in the flowers. Also, the soul with their colors inverted is cyan, and I'm not really sure that those other colors means anything, since the whole Dark World now is pink and gold. Something something, nostalgia, escapism, Sims and such, whatever. But the soul being cyan is very interesting to me. I made a video a while ago discussing how the colors of the human souls from Undertale matches the personalities of our Lightners. By that logic, Chris is patience, the cyan soul, or flower in this case. And you know what else is funny? The other bit of gameplay we're shown is Chris fighting along the attack pattern of the Cyan Soul during Omega Flowey's boss fight. First of all, I don't think that this is the secret boss, but this is definitely something special. Maybe the flowers on the basement will be their own characters, or maybe elements or trials, and they will confront their corresponding heroes. Thus, why Chris fights the cyan flower alone. Following that logic, Susie will face literal books thrown by the purple flower, and Ralsei might have to show his fire magic for once against the green flower. But anyways, that's all I have for today. All that's left to do is to wait a fortnight to see what Chapter 5 has in store for us. The only thing I really wish is that they give some plot relevance to Asgore, and for Toby to don't humiliate my man Mott. I really hope you liked the video, guys, and if that's the case, remember to leave a like, subscribe, and hit the notification button. That really helps me and the channel. Thank you all for watching, guys, and I'll see you all next time.